of Blexit, a former Tucson police officer and the author of a brand new book, Beaten Black and Blue, Being a Cop in America Under Siege. Good friend of the show, Brandon Tatum. Hey, Brand, how you doing, brother? Nice to see you.
I'm doing well, Dan.
Well, I got a couple things I need to talk to you about. Where do we begin? Our last interview, we were, of course, talking first and foremost about the Asian hate crimes that have been happening in this country, and I want to get your take on that before we move into the George Floyd trial, because I know you have an opinion on that as well. But you follow headlines. You read past the headlines. You don't just watch CNN like a lot of the left sheeple out there. You know for a fact the majority of these attacks, especially the ones on the West Coast and in New York City, have not been committed by white folk like the narrative is now since the shooting in Atlanta. Matter of fact, they didn't even cover most of these cases for the last 3-4 months until a white guy shot up the spas.
100%. You know what's happening is that they are pushing a racial narrative and a racial divide between whites and everybody else. If you look at the numbers, and don't listen to me, go do your own research. Look at the numbers. These hate crimes that are against Asians are perpetuated mostly by African Americans. My wife put on her Instagram stories, if you want to go on there, Corinne Tatum, look at her Instagram. She got all of these cases where black people were assaulting and killing Asian people, and it's not even in the mainstream media. Then I decided to say, you know what, I'm not going to listen to the headlines. I'm going to go look up what happened in Atlanta and what happened with this spa shooting. It had nothing to do with them being Asian. It had everything to do with a dude who's a lunatic and a maniac who decides to use his religion or his religious process to go and assault people because he wanted to help his sexual immorality. I mean, that has nothing to do with people being Asian. That has everything to do with what was happening at these spas, his sexual lust or his sexual connection with these spas that happen to have Asian people in it. And I find it interesting that they are pushing this narrative and they know it's a lie. These people are devils who are trying to destroy our country based on race.
Yeah, and it's interesting that most of the pundits and the media talking heads that are pushing this and the Democrats in charge are all white. And they're literally trying to divide the nation, pitting every minority, because last summer it was the black community. Now this year we're using the Asian community. They haven't got to the Latino community yet. I'm sure they'll get there. Maybe not. It always seems like they act like they care about Latinos on the Dem side, the liberal side, and then they do nothing. Kind of like the crisis and humanitarian crisis at the border. But that's another discussion, Brand. But I find it interesting that the President of the United States takes a trip and is going to meet now, or did meet rather today, with Asian American leaders in the Atlanta community, but he has never once gone to Oakland or San Francisco or LA, where these attacks have been going on since December, January.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's, first of all, he's half dead, walking around, falling up Air Force One.
Yeah.
He can't remember if he's the president or Kamala Harris the president. True. So, I mean, nothing that he does makes any sense. These people are just virtue signaling. To be honest, I've been to Atlanta. There is a tremendous amount of black folks in Atlanta. I haven't even seen an Asian person when I go to Atlanta, Georgia. I haven't seen not one. So, I mean, these people are just virtue signaling and going out on a limb to create more animosity and controversy so that they can be the perpetuation or the perpetuers, which is not a word, I just made that up. They are perpetuating an idea that they can then rescue people from. I mean, this is not what our country is made on, and this is not legitimized. And I wish that people will open their eyes and see that this makes no sense on planet Earth. There is more black violence and black on black violence in Atlanta than there is violence against Asians. When are these Democrats going to Atlanta to address issues in the inner city, address issues of violence against black people?
Yeah.
They won't, because they don't care.
Now, if anybody cared that was a white leader on the Democrat side, their asses would be in Chicago every day talking about black on black violence and trying to end that. But they don't care. If they cared about black lives and Black Lives Mattered, then Black Lives Matter and Joe Biden and the rest of these media you-know-whats, I got some colorful words for them, would be in Chicago, would be in Atlanta, would be in Detroit, would be in Baltimore, would be in Boston, where the crime rate, the highest, is black on black crime. But let's not talk about that, Brandon. No. Because the narrative is white, straight, conservative Christian males are all racist because they're Republicans and they worship Trump. And so now we're going to divide the country by saying whites want to hurt or kill every minority because every white conservative is racist. But us liberal, woke white folk, we're here to help. That's the narrative. Did I get it about right?
Yeah, I mean that's the narrative, and it's a complete bullcrap lie.
Yes,
I
it is.
mean, if
You can
anything,
say
these
bull.
white liberals are hurting black people. When you have young black men growing up and they have all the opportunities in the world, this is the greatest time in American history to be black. This is the greatest time to be black in the world, in the United States of America, period. And you have them creating victims and telling them they're never going to be better than white people. How dare you try to pursue anything? The white man is always going to hold you down, and they have the ability to hold you down. Instead of telling them how to be victors, tell them how to work their way up to the top, how to be successful, not giving handouts, but giving maybe a hand up to be prosperous. But they're not doing that. They're teaching young black men in America to be victims, and that you're always going to be subservient to white men in America. And
Yeah,
it's a
and
lie.
you need
It
them.
is hateful.
And you need those white liberals to tell you what to do, how to play the victim, and they'll take care of you. It's a voting plantation. That's what they're doing to the black community. Let's pivot now to the George Floyd case. I know you got an opinion on this one because we've got officers being charged. I'm glad to see that some in the media, not many, are now bringing back up some of the facts of that horrible day. And the fact is that George Floyd, for nearly 20 minutes in the back of the squad car, was already screaming and complaining that he couldn't breathe. He asked to be placed on the ground because he said he couldn't breathe. He had lethal levels of fentanyl, meth, and marijuana is not lethal, but 3 drugs in his system, 2 of them at a lethal level. So the facts are coming out that, yes, while it is horrific what Officer Chauvin did with his knee to the back for 8 minutes, not going to make light of that. There's a lot more to this story leading up to that.
Yeah, and I think that it's shameful that they parading George Floyd around like he's God in gold caskets. They're giving his family $20+ million in a settlement. I mean, this is crazy. The dude is a drug user, a convicted felon. He's done home invasions where he put a gun to a woman and demanded that she get on her knees, and they begin to rob her. I mean, this guy is not a saint. And I'm not saying he deserved to die. That's not me. I'm not God. Only God can decide who deserves what and who deserves, to live or die. But what I can tell you is that his actions led to his death. When you are on fentanyl and methamphetamine, you are literally committing suicide. And for him to have that much of a lethal dose in his system, he's killing himself regardless of what what Officer Chauvin or anybody else had done. And he was acting erratically. He claimed that he was claustrophobic in the back of the patrol car, yet he's in the front seat of a car that's even more cramped, and he wasn't claustrophobic then. He didn't have any issues when he was trying to buy something with fake money. He didn't have any issues when he was resisting arrest. Yep. And it bothers me that we can never be honest in our country. This had nothing to do with race. If anything, 2 dummies ran into each other on a police call that was necessitated by the actions of George Floyd, and the man ended up dying. It had nothing to do with race. There was an Asian cop on the scene. There was a person who's a black cop on the scene, and then there was 2 white cops. How is this a white racist thing against George Floyd? Also, there were 2 other black people in the car with George Floyd. Why didn't they get beat up and killed? Why weren't they arrested? They were let go because they didn't have no involvement. I'm sick of them trying to race bait us. Policing in America is a bunch of honest men and women who are putting their lives on the line to protect most of the time idiots. And then they protect the other people secondary, like you and I, who are law-abiding citizens. But we need to stop this narrative against law enforcement and just be honest. So when there are issues of race, we can actually address them.
Yes, because you keep crying wolf. We know what happened to the young boy that did that. We know what, just point out one, Jesse Smollett, making stuff up. Now the next time there is a real hate crime against a black man or woman, people are going to doubt it because they're race baiting and making every single thing about race now in this country when it is not. Yes, there are some serious issues to address, but it's not at the grand scale they want us all to believe. Brandon, I appreciate you, man, so much. You have no idea. Coming on, keeping it real. The book isn't dropping until later this year, but I'm going to keep pitching it for you. It is called Beaten Black and Blue, Being a Cop in an America Under Siege by Brandon Tatum. Thank you, man. You take care. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Dan. God bless you.
Yep. God bless you.